As the political world waits with bated breath for Vice President Joe Biden's decision on a possible 2016 White House run, and with the first Democrat debate now in the rearview mirror, what does it mean for Hillary Clinton's quest for her party's nomination? Our political insiders are back. Pat Caddell, Doug Schoen, and John LeBoutillier. John, your reaction to the debate, I know you feel they did not talk enough about the FBI investigation of Hillary Clinton.
Well, here's the thing. I think that Hillary Clinton, when she puts her head down on the pillow at night, is not worried about Bernie Sanders, O'Malley, any of these guys. They're not even a possible nominee. None of them can beat her for the nomination. The one thing to worry about for her is this looming FBI email investigation, the leaking of the emails. Is there a violation of the Espionage Act, all that? And this is now broken out in the press since the president went on 60 Minutes a week ago tonight and signaled in a funny sort of way that he didn't think there was anything there in the emails. And this has angered the FBI, who are professionals. They're not political. They're doing their job. And what we are wondering, Pat, Doug, and I, is politics going to come in above the FBI at the Justice Department and the White House to stifle a legitimate investigation?
It's a good question. All right, Pat Caddell, your debate reaction, and is Biden in the mix here?
Well, I still think he's in the mix. I don't understand all this. There are no roadways anywhere. I'm just so tired of listening to pundits and journalists who have been wrong all year, for over a year, for a long time. I thought the debate was a debate of two people who are leading the race with a bunch of pygmies. And the Democratic Party, it's clear, is not going to nominate the political pygmies, to be clear. And that the Democratic Party is not going to nominate probably a raging socialist. By the way, and I want to say this about the debate. For all of this stuff, including from some of our own people at Fox, I thought Anderson Cooper was lousy in terms of what he didn't do. He didn't ask the questions that should have been asked to Hillary Clinton about the fact that she has got 60% of the country that believes that she's essentially a liar or dishonest. She did not ask Bernie Sanders, after Bernie Sanders decided we should talk about the issues and nothing else and gave her a free pass on the emails, a critical question. Senator, do you consider character an issue in a presidential election? Should the American people care about it? And, all kinds of questions like that I could go through. It was, she sort of won the debate, didn't change the race at all, did eliminate. I was very disappointed in Jim Webb, who I was hoping would speak for people, Democrats like myself, who are upset and who was a fool on the air.
We're running out of time,
of course,
for Doug.
Lincoln Chafee, who was pathetic.
Yeah. Hey, Pat, let me get in here if I can, please. Look, this was a huge moment for Hillary Clinton. This was the chance for Bernie Sanders to break through. He didn't. You're exactly right, Pat. They didn't ask the tough questions that worked to Hillary's advantage. She was able to say on the emails she was transparent without anyone questioning her. She was able to say that Benghazi was a Republican arm of the National Committee, that was totally political. She's gotten a huge bump out of this. The question now is, will Biden get in? And his opening has gotten much more narrow, his road to the nomination much more difficult, and I think it's less likely today that he gets in again than it was a week ago.
All right, we have to take a break here. We have more coming up. We got to take a break. The U.S. facing a number of challenges around the world, including Russia getting more involved militarily in the Middle East and Iran's new role in Syria, China flexing its muscles. How will our next commander-in-chief deal with all this? The Insider's coming up more. Russia's growing military role in the Middle East is posing new challenges to President Obama's plan to destroy ISIS. Russia's airstrikes in Syria increasingly targeting U.S.-backed rebels there. And now a majority of Americans, 61%, believe our national security interests are at stake in Syria. That, according to the latest Fox News polling. Our political insiders are back. Pat Caddell, Doug Schoen, and John LeBoutillier. Doug, what needs to happen in Syria now?
Well, we need to much more effectively support the anti-Assad rebels, and we need to say to the Russians, you cannot operate with impunity in Syria and indeed in the Middle East, because candidly, Patty Ann, we're losing. The Economist had a cover this week of the Russian and Chinese leaders, President Xi and Putin, with all the chips in a poker game. and President Obama with no chips. And that pretty accurately sums up what's happening. The Iranians have tested a long-range missile. And candidly, we are in very, very bad shape globally, getting worse as time goes on.
Doug, you know, Doug, those men you've mentioned, Putin and Xi, they have measured Obama, and they see him as basically a piece of tissue paper in the Oval Office that they can just march right through. And to think for the next 16 months there's going to be any change in the Oval Office towards Syria, what would we do to stop Putin now that he's there? Bombing, drones, 1,000 Iranian troops. I hate to say it, it's too late.
Yeah, they say there's
the
a
only
moment.
thing Obama's done, John, is to say please.
Yeah,
please, pretty please, back down, and that's not going to work.
Pat Caddell, this same Fox News poll that we just cited shows only 29% of Americans agree with President Obama that Russia is weak and desperate, but 52% of Americans believe President Obama is weak and indecisive. Go for it.
Yes. well, look, this is what this tells us is the American people are not fooled by the fantasy crap that comes out of the White House and out of a lot of the mainstream media. We're getting our rear ends handed to us. And let me just say about this president, every time he's confronted by evil, he waves a white flag. And every time he is confronted with America's national security interest at stake, he waves a white feather. It is a disaster, and it's going to be a huge issue next year, despite what the Democrats and the mainstream media think.
And let me say, the more it deteriorates, the more it will help a Trump-like candidate. Because the worse the mess is, the more the public goes, I can't handle it. I got to have someone come in and clean this mess up. And Trump is Mr. Cleanup because he's Mr. Independent, Mr. I solve every problem, Mr. I speak clearly. This helps him politically.
And Hillary is going to need a defense policy of her own that distinguishes herself from Obama, which is what she's begun doing. But she's got to do it. And, John, I predict as the general election approaches, you will see her do it and do it aggressively.
I could argue, a good Republican can argue, though, that she helped contribute to this mess.
Oh, absolutely. You're right about that.
All right.
Absolutely.
She already blew it.
All right. We have final thoughts coming up. We're going to ask you about the Iran deal, which takes effect today. Also, remember, chime in while you tune in. Hit us up on Fox News social pages, Twitter, and Facebook.